And welcome, I am Ellie Richardson and you are watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The US Justice Department releases 3 million pages, 180,000 images and 2,000 videos linked to Jeffrey Epstein. The release comes after a missed legal deadline, with officials saying it ends a major review to ensure transparency. The US government enters a partial shutdown after Congress fails to pass a 2026 budget. Lawmakers signal a quick fix as the House moves to ratify a Senate-backed deal next week. According to a statement by the Danish Foreign Ministry, Denmark will reopen its embassy in Damascus after a 14-year closure, with Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen saying embassy will resume operations to better monitor developments and boost cooperation with Syria. The US Chief of Mission for Venezuela is set to arrive in Caracas as the government proposes a broad amnesty law. Acting President Delcy Rodriguez says the bill could free hundreds of political detainees and transform a notorious prison. Iran says it is ready for fair and equitable talks with the United States as regional tensions continue to rise. President Donald Trump refuses to rule out military action, while Tehran says negotiations cannot occur under threats. Washington approves $6.67 billion in arms sales to Israel amid a fragile Gaza ceasefire. The package includes 30 Apache attack helicopters and infantry assault vehicles, according to the State Department. According to local officials, at least 20 people were killed after heavy rains triggered devastating landslides at a mine in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, which is controlled by M23 rebels, while authorities warned the toll could rise as rescue operations continue. According to international media reports, Guinea-Bissau opposition leader Domingos Simões was released from jail on Friday after months in detention following the November military coup that ousted President Umaro Sissoco just days after presidential election. And for your top story this hour, the US Justice Department has released over 180,000 new documents, including files, images, and over 2,000 new videos, totaling up to some 3.5 million responsive pages of documents relating to the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. The Department of Justice has stated that over 500 attorneys have been involved with the vetting process, and the release includes, quote, untrue and sensationalist claims about President Donald Trump. This rider to this latest release is causing some controversy, particularly since the Justice Department's preface to release doubles down on this claim, stating outrightly that the claims are unfounded and false, and if they have a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. The outrage to this is quite strong, with the authors of the Epstein Transparency Act, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, demanding to see unredacted versions of the documents involving Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. In a letter to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, they requested a meeting to review files they say are overly redacted. Khanna and Massie want to access to hundreds of thousands of pages, including emails, victim interviews, and key investigation documents. They argue that current redactions limit oversight and public accountability. The lawmakers seek to review these files in person, hoping to understand the full scope of the government's actions in the case. The outrage to this is quite strong, with the authors of the Epstein Transparency Act, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, demanding to see unredacted versions of the documents involving Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. In a letter to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, they requested a meeting to review files they say are overly redacted. Kana and Massey want access to hundreds of thousands of pages, including emails, victim interviews and key investigation documents. They argue that current redactions limit oversight and public accountability, and the lawmakers seek to review these files in person, hoping to understand the full scope of the government's actions in the case. We are now being joined by Alison Mutler in Romania, who's the former AP Bureau Chief. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World.
Hello, Ellie.
If the Justice Department says the files contain fake and untrue pieces of information, all of these claims, does that justify withholding parts of the Epstein files, or does it undermine transparency?
Well, it's an absolute mess. I mean, the people that want transparency should have access to these files, but then you have to say determine how much is fake in these files and who determines that, and how much is real. And then after that, it's who else has access to them. Are they given to the public? If they're given to the public, are they redacted to protect victims? And other things which are not, legal wrongdoing. So it's very, very complicated, but more than complicated, it's an absolute mess. There has been a lot of pressure, political pressure, I suppose public pressure for these files to be opened, and they are being made public. We now have another tranche of, I think you said, 3 million pages, but it's still not the whole picture. And the people who are behind pushing for this transparency want to see everything without the redactions. That doesn't mean, and redactions means just obscuring all the details. That doesn't mean that the public will have access to them. But the people who are behind this move, they do want to see the original documents. That said, if there is false information in those files, who determines that? It's quite a mess, and I don't think we're ever going to have any satisfactory answers. We have had more transparency than we did a few months ago, and files have been open and made public, but then it's up to the public to decide, what to make of these files, whether wrongdoing happened or whether it's just a huge embarrassment to very powerful people like Prince Andrew and other people who are mentioned in the files, like Mandelson, he's a British politician, and also Bill Gates. And how much actual legal wrongdoing, and if there is a legal wrongdoing, what happens after that? Does the Department of Justice pursue justice in these cases? There are a lot of unanswered questions here, and of course, what to do with these files and who can see them.
Yeah, 100%. And we've obviously heard that this took a while to come out. These files were meant to be shown public quite a couple of months ago, and it's now late, and it's come back now, and now it's redacted. Some majority of it is redacted, and now the Justice Department is saying it's untrue. But does labelling claims as untrue and sensationalist protect Trump, or risk dismissing legitimate allegations in the Epstein files?
I think should the Department of Justice actually make those assertions? They probably shouldn't, but they are part of the Trump administration, and I think it does undermine allegations that wrongdoing may have occurred. Yes, I do think so, but and I think the Department of Justice shouldn't be making judgments on the files that they're fake. How do they know they're fake? In what way are they fake? It's very unclear, and calling them sensationally, that's something a politician should say, not the Department of Justice.
And as the public you've briefly mentioned this, as the public receiving all of these millions and millions pages of documents, how can the public trust the handling of sensitive documents when politics and high-profile figures are involved?
I think what's clear from what we've seen, what came out overnight with Prince Andrew, or the former Prince Andrew, what's he called, Mountbatten now, and also with Bill Gates and with Peter Mandelson, the British politician, it's quite selective. Obviously, it's the journalists who get hold of it and they decide what's newsworthy. And so they will publish stories that the British, for example, in Britain, the British public know about, or in America the same. So it's also the journalists making a selection of what stories they think are interesting, because there may be some quite powerful people who are not public names. I don't know, business people or hedge funders or whatever, who aren't very well known. And so newspapers or online sites aren't going to make a story out of it. But that doesn't mean that they aren't in there. The only way the public can really have access is if there is a link within the articles, so that members of the public can access that link. Otherwise, the newspapers are just going to pick out the stories that they think their readers will be interested in, and to be honest, what will generate clicks.
Yeah. Alison, don't go too far, as we will come back to you in just a moment. Newly released Department of Justice files show Elon Musk had more extensive and friendly communications with the infamous sex offender Jeffrey Epstein than previously known. Emails between the two moguls from 2012 and 2013 reveal a series of discussions about the Musk visiting Epstein's private island in Virgin Islands. These emails contradict Musk's long-standing denials about his connections to Epstein, in which he called Epstein a creep and claimed he repeatedly rejected Epstein's invitations to visit his island. In one exchange from December 2013, Musk asked, "We'll be in the Barts area over the holidays. Is there a good time to visit?" Epstein responded, "Any day, 1st to 8th. Play it by ear if you want. Always space for you." Musk and Epstein then discussed a specific visit in early January 2014, with Epstein expressing regret that Musk would need to stay in New York instead, ending the exchange with a disappointed message, "Hopefully we can schedule another time in the near future." In November 2012, Epstein asked Musk how many people would be with him for the helicopter ride to the island, to which Musk replied, "Probably just Tallulah and me." The exchange continued with Musk asking about parties on the island, saying he was looking for a wild party after a stressful year and not interested in a peaceful escape. Epstein replied, "Understood. I will see you on St. Barth." Epstein later added, "The ratio on my island might make Tallulah uncomfortable," to which Musk responded, "Ratio is not a problem for Tallulah." The documents also include Epstein's assistant Leslie Groff making arrangements for Epstein to have lunch with Musk at SpaceX in February 2013 and congratulating him after a SpaceX rocket launched in March of the same year. However, it is unclear whether the lunch ever took place or if Musk attended. Musk had been under pressure to address his connections to Epstein after previously revealed documents, including a calendar entry from 2014 that stated, "Reminder, Elon Musk to island December the 6th. Is this still happening?" Musk denied the allegation, calling it false on a post on X, formerly known as Twitter. We are now being joined back again by Alison Mutzler. Thank you so much for joining us back. What challenges do these high-profile figures face in managing reputation and public perception when historical emails or invitations are now surfacing in these documents like the newly released files?
Well, of course, that's it. When nobody's talking about legal wrongdoing here, but it is about, as you said, about public perception and social reputation. And the problem for someone like Elon Musk, and he's not the only one in this case, is that so far he's sought very assiduously to distance himself from Jeffrey Epstein and say that he barely knew him or he had nothing to do with him. And now those words are coming back to haunt him when we see a long series of emails. It's unclear from these emails whether he ever actually went to the island and took part in these parties, but it's clear that there was there was quite a significant exchange between the pair, and there were plans. So this is, for a start, socially embarrassing. It shows that Musk at best downplayed his interaction or his connections or relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and at worst he lied, which means that does damage his reputation, because it means he can't be trusted, and that is damaging for him, whether or not he actually went there or not. But this is typical in this kind of case. You know, Jeffrey Epstein was totally disgraced. He committed suicide. You know, his former partner is in prison to do with people trafficking, sex trafficking, and nobody wants anything to do with him. At the time, they probably thought they were unassailable. They wouldn't be touched by justice. But as it began to come out, these people, I think, got scared, and including someone like Elon Musk. And so he tried to distance himself and said nothing happens. But now his data is coming out to contradict what he says. And whereas he might not have done anything criminal, there's absolutely no evidence of that. It is embarrassing for him. And it does show that he did, as I said, best downplay his connection with Epstein, and was actually outright lied about it.
And does Musk's response, obviously, he was emphasising that he declined all of his invites. Like, he got invites, but he never, ever wanted to go or said he could go or something along those lines. Were they meaningfully addressed concerns raised by the file disclosures, or does it raise further questions about these elite social networks?
I think what it shows is there are these elite social networks, and they're nothing to do with politics. People who go out every day publicly and curse each other and you know, speak badly about each other behind the scenes, are socializing and getting up to all kinds of sordid, scurrilous things, as is the case with Epstein, and illegal and possibly illegal things as well. And at the moment, he's what we call passing. He's just kind of playing with words to distance himself. But it's clear whether, for whatever reason, he didn't go. It seems to have been there was a problem with his diary, that he had things that kept him in New York he may not have done. But there's nothing in those emails that we've seen that show that he was actually distasteful, because he was actually opposed to going, because he would have answered it in a different way, saying from the start, I don't think I can come. But so I don't think it's very credible what he says, but there is no evidence of legal wrongdoing, just perhaps a massive social embarrassment. And again, I think the public will think, you know, probably quite truthfully, that there is a lot of behind the scenes, these people who claim perhaps to be rivals publicly are in fact great friends and partying and doing all kinds of unsavoury, scurrilous and even illegal things.
Thank you, Alison. Don't go too far, as we will be back with you in just a moment. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, Israeli airstrikes in Gaza have killed at least 12 people, including children. One strike hit an apartment in Gaza City, killing 3 children and 2 women. Another strike hit a tent in Khan Yunis, further south. The Israeli ministry says it is investigating the reports and has not immediately confirmed carrying out the strikes. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian is blaming the United States, Israel and Europe for fueling recent unrest across the country. He says foreign leaders exploited Iran's economic crisis and pushed people into the streets, accusing them of trying to tear the nation apart. The protests erupted in late December over soaring inflation and rising living costs. They lasted 2 weeks and ended after a violent crackdown. Iran's army chief has warned the United States and Israel against any attack, saying Iran's forces are on full alert following heavy US military deployments in the Gulf. General Amir Hatami says any mistake would threaten regional security. He also insists Iran's nuclear technology cannot be eliminated, even under pressure of threat from US airstrikes. We are being joined back again by Alison. Thank you so much for joining us back here again. How does Iran's assertion that its nuclear technology cannot be eliminated shape the strategic calculus for the US, Israel and their allies, especially in terms of deterrence and potentially military options?
I think it will probably harden their resolve, because here we have Tehran playing hardball. They're not backing down on this. It's something that has been a big issue, a bone of contention for the West for more, a couple of decades. about Iran's nuclear program and the fact that Tehran is now saying that they won't back down and they will continue. This will be a factor in hardening the results. We're not saying there's going to be a military confrontation, but it's not going to be something that the Western, like the United States and Europe and Israel will like, for sure. That Iran is standing firm and saying that can continue its nuclear program.
Thank you so much, Alison, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Deadly violence has erupted in Pakistan's southwestern Balochistan province. At least 10 security personnel and 37 terrorists were killed after ethnic Baloch separatists launched coordinated attacks across the region. Officials say the assaults targeted more than a dozen locations earlier today. Security forces responded with counter-operations, killing dozens of terrorists and leaving several personnel injured. The attacks mark the latest escalation in the long-running insurgency in Balochistan, a province plagued by separatist violence and security challenges. I am now being joined by retired Colonel Sanjeet Sarohi, who's an international relations and defence expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. What does the scale and the coordination of these simultaneous attacks across multiple locations reveal about the current strength and tactics of separatist insurgent group in Pakistan's southwest?
Thank you, Ellie, for calling me on your news channel and discussing something very, very important. If you see, the Balochistan problem is not something very new. This problem has been for decades long. And basically, it is the insurgents, they follow the guerrilla tactics. And there are some areas in Balochistan where even the army personnel are scared of going there. So the simultaneous attack at 12 locations shows that there is a total coordination in the Balochistan Liberation Army, and they have been very, very active in some of the areas like Quetta, Pasni, Mastu, Nushki, and Gwadar district. So I think this has been going on for too long, and they are asking for independence. And the basic reason, if you go into detail, is that the Balochistan is one of the richest states with a lot of minerals, oils, and gases, but it is the poorest in the country. It has got the poor education, employment, and economic development. So there is a lot of frustration among the local inhabitants there. And as and when they get a chance, they strike the military personnel, security personnel, or even non-locals coming from other areas and other foreigners also, including the Chinese and other people coming from other countries. So it is a long-drawn battle which has been going on for quite some time. And unless Pakistan government talks to Balochistan people and sort out their problems and resolve their issues, I think this will carry on, and the day is not too far when it may happen that Balochistan is liberated from Pakistan.
And what does the high number of casualties among both security forces and militants tell us about the intensity of these attacks?
Look, the intensity of the attack is very, very severe. If you see, the last year, the train was hijacked in where there are about hundreds of people who were killed, including the security forces, and this has been going on for quite some time, and always there have been a lot of casualties. And when the figures comes out, you are not very sure about the figures also, because most of the figures are doctored in. Like if they are talking about that there were 37 militants who were killed, and only 10 security forces have been killed. So you have to take these figures with a pinch of salt, because they are not very sure that whether they are actual figures or they have been doctored in. Ali.
And how might these losses affect Pakistan's strategy against militant groups in the southwest?
Look, if you go into details and you see the last year figure, there have been a lot of casualties of the security personnel. And this, because the problem is that it is not an open ground, it is a mountainous area, and it is very, very difficult for the security forces to find out where the insurgents are. And as and when they strike, it is a totally surprise is achieved. And whenever you are surprised by anyone, the casualties on your own side will be much more than on the other side. So I think the casualties have been quite high. And although Pakistan Army is a professional army and fighting for so long, though they are doing their best to do whatever they could. But the problem is they are remote areas and it is very, very difficult for the armed forces also to go in strength and take the necessary action. Really.
Thank you so much, Sanjeet, for joining us here today on NewsX World. As per reports, thousands of young people marched for democracy in Myanmar after the military coup 5 years ago. Today, many of them are dead or still behind bars. According to prison monitoring groups, at least 74 political prisoners aged between 18 and 35 have died in detention since the 2021 coup. They were part of a generation that grew up with new freedoms during Myanmar's brief experiment with democracy. Students, activists and union members took to the streets, demanding their voices be heard. The military responded with a sweeping crackdown. Some protesters fled the country while others were arrested and sent to prison. The United Nations has accused Myanmar's security forces of systematic abuse. The military government denies those claims for families and friends. The cost of demanding democracy has been devastating. Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado has said that while the general amnesty law proposed by interim President Delcy Rodriguez was not celebrated by Venezuelans, it represents an irreversible and unstoppable path towards democracy and reconciliation. Let's listen in to what Maria Corina Machado had to say.
Obviamente no es algo que voluntariamente el régimen haya querido hacer, sino es producto de la presión real que ha recibido por parte del gobierno de los Estados Unidos. Ojalá sea así y ojalá los más de 700 presos que aún permanecen en los centros de tortura en Venezuela puedan estar con su familia muy pronto, Mike.
That's all we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.